Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast, the Project Investigation Collaboration, which is the collaboration podcast between the founder of the Veritas Project, Robert Curtis.
Hello.
And investigator Todd, myself, Todd Boyer. And welcome back this week. We're going to talk about Haunted Highway 50 in California.
Yeah.
And it is called The Loneliest Road, and it is haunted all the way up and down it.
Yeah, crazy story.
So crazy stories we got to go over, and this was actually requested by one of the viewers.
Yep, one of the viewers.
So we did a little background, did a little research, and
she said she wanted to know more about the ghost in the road.
Right.
And it was in Spanish, which I don't read Spanish, so I had to Google search it, and then the Google result for what it said in Spanish didn't make any sense. So then I had to think about it for a couple of days, and then it dawned on me, like, oh, the ghost in the road, right, was what she was talking about. So then I went back and watched that video over again, and now this is what she was talking about. She wanted to know more about the phantom in the road that caused them to find the son who was still alive in the car.
Oh, yeah, because that's the story that we actually talked about a while back on one of the podcasts.
And
Famous Hauntings, yep.
So here we are.
Here we are.
We're doing what we said we'd do, right? You give us a suggestion, we do a deeper dive into it, so we can help you guys out, find out more research.
So the backstory that the commenter talked about, I'll let you go ahead and explain that.
Yeah. So this woman, let me get her name straight. It is Christine Dawn and Nicholas Anthony Skubish. We're driving between Placerville, or between on the El Dorado Freeway near Placerville, but it's not. It's way outside of Placerville.
Yeah, it's like, what was it, 12 or 13 miles outside, so it's not like right outside.
And the police report says it was at mile marker 32.8 or something like that, but the family and the TV show said it was mile marker 16 for some reason. And mile marker 16 is actually in the town of Placerville.
Right.
So it's nowhere near where the accident took place. So if you look at it on the map and you're like, I'm looking at mile marker 16, it's an intersection.
Right.
Like, there's no trees or anything anywhere near where it happened. But the true place is 32. It's out in the boonies. And what happens is the highway goes straight for a long time, and then it kind of turns a little bit and then turns back a little bit, and then there's a sharp hairpin turn in the freeway. And what happened was she fell asleep while she was driving, kind of slid along the guardrail for a couple seconds, and then poof, right off this.
So she came around the corner like this, right, and then went right over the edge of the guardrail,
where it turns,
and went down into the ravine.
A sharp hairpin turn, and she didn't hairpin. She just went right off into the ravine. It was 40 feet down the side of a hill that's straight up and down. She hit several trees, actually tore the roof off of the car. And
did that fix it, Piranha?
Oh, from the...
Yeah, we've noticed that our ring light somehow makes a whine sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's so weird, the mount for the ring light. So
and my hearing is so bad I can't hear it. So
yeah, I've got a ringing in my ears too. If I'm up close to it, I can hear it. So obviously you guys are picking it up.
I can't hear it at all.
So yeah.
But back to the story. The car went off the road, hit multiple trees on its way down the embankment, actually rolled on its side at one point and tore the roof off of the car, and then came to a rest at the bottom of the hill. And Christine was killed instantly, they say. Some stories say she lived for a couple days,
right?
But there's no evidence to support that. She was still seatbelted into the driver's seat and still, like in the driving position. So there's no way that she was...
Yeah, that she lived for a few days.
For a couple days, no.
Right.
The kid was in the car alone for 5 days before he was discovered by the police, right? And the way he was found was a family was driving down the road in the middle of the night, singing songs to each other to keep themselves awake, doing what people would do, and saw a naked woman laying on the side of the road. And they slowed down to look and thought, oh man, somebody's going to carjack us or something, you know, because this is, 94. So it was in the era where people would do that, And then this region is known for highwaymen and stagecoach robberies. So that thought would already be in their their
Right.
lexicon, that happened in this area. So
Thank you, Prana.
they went into town and called the police and said, hey, we saw this naked woman laying on the side of the road. So
Right.
the police went out there, two cruisers went out there immediately and looked around, couldn't find anyone. And the chief of police said, well, I'll go out there in the morning when the sun comes up,
Yep.
so that way I'll be able to see better what happened. So he parked his car right at the bend where there's a lot of accidents that happen, and was walking up and down the road, and he saw a child's shoe on the side of the road, right where there's this scar on the highway that you can still see to this day, where the car high-centered itself on its way down the hill. The road goes straight, and then there's a little flat spot, and then it goes straight again. And there's actually, to this day, there's still a hubcap and a piece of bumper plastic that's still sitting on the side of the road as of right now, until someone goes out there and steals it. But
Right.
but he saw the shoe and then walked over to the edge of the road, and then he saw the car
Right.
smashed to oblivion down at the bottom of the hill, and then he called an ambulance right away. And then when he went down there, he went to the driver's side of the car and saw Christine deceased, and then went around to the passenger side and saw the son
Right.
laying in the passenger seat in the fetal position. And as soon as he touched him on the neck to see if he was alive, the kid took a breath, and then he picked him up and carried him up to the top of the hill right about the time the ambulance arrived, and then that's when.
So that is the main story, the most recent story.
Right.
But as we said, though, there's a lot of activity on Highway 50, and it does date all the way back to, early stagecoaches and back to the Pony Express Trail.
Yeah, there's a Pony Express route that runs right next to the freeway.
So that's this whole section of all of Highway 50 is supposedly, we're talking phantom hitchhikers, people are seeing apparitions, along Highway 50 everywhere. So, people are seeing full body apparitions. They're seeing, stuff out of the corner of their eyes, because, we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
You have good, view out of the corner of your eyes because we're brought up to be,
right. Your
aware of predators,
Your focus of your eye, the middle part, is for like reading and interpretation, but the sides of your eyes are for like motion,
right?
So that way you don't get killed by a tiger, right? What?
Yeah. So I mean, there's talk about full-bodied apparition. There's talk about shadows. There's
Mists,
talk of
lights.
Could be remnants of the natives that lived in Native Americans that lived in that area. The woman in white, obviously, which is a big one.
Yep.
Same kind of thing. It just, just so much activity happens along that Highway 50 that, I mean, even mysterious lights.
Right.
So, it's one of those situations. You have to excuse us. We have our Chat GPT notes that we keep on the screen to.
Yeah, and my monitor is wide and not tall.
Yeah. So we have to move the mouse occasionally to make sure we don't lag out.
I'll get another monitor that we can turn on its side so that we can read
up and down. Yeah,
because this computer supports that.
Right.
All my monitors are wide.
But so then, like, Prana says, "Me too, monitor. Me too." Wants to shut down. You gotta shake it every once in a while to keep it awake. But yeah, so a lot of thrill seekers flock to Highway 50.
Yeah.
A lot of paranormal investigators, are out there looking, and because it is so haunted out there.
Right, and people who are historians, because one of the most famous stagecoach robberies took place right next to where this happened. It's weird because if you zoom in on the map, you see all these markers, and you're like, oh, this is where the paranormal is, and not a single one of those markers is paranormal.
Really,
it's all about the Bullion Road stagecoach robbery.
Really,
how they had the trial out there and they executed the people, the Confederates that robbed the stagecoach. And there's actually a marker in the woods adjacent to where the accident happened that is for where the actual stagecoach robbery took place.
Wow. So talking mysterious lights, right? So lights in the woods, lights in the sky,
Yeah.
You know, we're talking like full-on hot area. You know, a hot zone for all the paranormal.
It looks like when you look at the map of Highway 50, it runs through a bunch of major towns, and you would think in California, you know, outside of Fresno, you see all these big towns, you would think, oh, this is a highly populated area. But then when you put the satellite view on your
there's
map,
nothing out there.
There's nothing out there.
Yep.
Like there's like a place right down the road from where this accident took place. It's called the something Trailways RV Park or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. You zoom in on it, and it is literally a dirt road. It's, what do you park your RV on the dirt? I guess. Like, I don't understand. But it's not as populous as it looks on the map when you do the satellite image. You're like, wow, this is the wilderness out here. And it goes from 4 lanes to 2 lanes right around where it bends.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really dangerous corners around this road, and it goes like I said earlier in Christine's story, the road goes straight for a long time, and then there's hairpins in it through the mountains, and then it's straight again for a long. So there's a lot of chances for you to fall asleep and drift off the road. You know, it is a thing that still happens to this day.
Yeah, so. And then not only is it, or you know, you've got your apparitions and you got your lights, you got sounds.
Right.
Out there, like just eerie sounds coming out of the woods. People hear people walking around in the woods out there.
Snapping twigs and disembodied voices.
You know, it's like I said, it's a hot spot.
Yeah.
Crazy. Up there, you know. But you got a lot of that around, you know what I'm saying? This isn't just...
Oh, no.
I mean, we picked a specific spot, you know, to talk about today. But you know how we go with it. We may talk about this spot for a few minutes and then take a left turn and end up in a rabbit hole somewhere. Yeah. But, you know, you've got a lot of roads out there that people are like, you know, this is that, and you know what I'm saying? A lot of
stagecoach routes are notoriously haunted.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, you know, Easterners, you know, like you ever watch Wrangler Star on YouTube?
Mm-mm.
He talks about how Easterners are soft people, you know, and that just popped into my head because that's what I was about to say. Is that soft people from the East, you know, like lawyers and stuff, wanted to go west because of the gold boom. So they would jump on a stagecoach and spend, you know, 5-6 days riding full speed on a stagecoach. They wouldn't make it.
Right.
You know, they would just get beaten up internally and die. And then the stagecoach company would literally stop the coach, dig a hole, push their body in it, and then carry on with their route. That is legit. They would just shove the corpse out of the wagon, throw it in a hole, and then carry on with their route. And then they would write a letter back to the family that, you know, you're 6 miles outside of Sagebrush Gulch. That's where your dad's buried. And that's how they did business back then. So all along these coach routes, there's little cairn, like stone piles that are the graves of people that didn't make it on their trip. One of our first investigations I did back in the 90s was the Vallecito stage stop outside of San Diego. And it's famous because every year there's a lady in white in like a wedding dress who didn't make it on her trip. And she made it all the way to the Vallecito stage stop before she passed away on her way to San Diego. And every year on the anniversary of her death, she shows up in a white wedding dress. And the day we were out there, my friend Chicken and I actually saw...
Did you just say your friend Chicken?
Yeah. And, you know, in the Marines, everybody has a
name,
right?
Yep.
Chicken. Because we called him Chicken because he looked like the chicken hawk. He's a short little dude, you know, short dude, big head. He's a great guy. But he was actually, like, face-to-face with it, and I could see the light from it, from around the corner where I was at. And by the time I got to where an angle where I could see the light, it was gone.
Right. Oh. So. Yeah. So, I mean, you'll find a lot of these places, you know, the haunted highways with haunted ghosts and
so many
and that kind of stuff, you know.
And even just from the energy from animals being killed over and over there, you know, or unalived.
Unalived.
The animals were unalived.
For TikTok purposes. But no, you know, there's a lot of almost the same kind of story, like in a lot of places in the United States with, you know, this is something that we covered in types of hauntings, you know, a few weeks ago, where the apparition, that looks like good coffee there in a nice mug, Bob. But yeah, there's a lot of apparitions along the roads that are helpful, and so this isn't just like an isolated story. This happens all over the United States. So it makes you think, what is the connection? You know what I'm saying? Like the spiritual connection, the energy.
Yeah.
What keeps these things happening over and over and over?
Well, it could be that it's the psychic energy from that person in their last minutes of their life, that's imprinted on the environment, and their last thought was, I want to help other people not fall in the same fate, right? So, the spirit's like a guy with a lantern, telling you, hey, watch out for this corner. There's bandits ahead, or you know what I mean, like something like that. That's a premonition, or like a banshee type scenario.
And that's another thing that we see often a lot in these stories too. We're going rabbit hole now. We'll see like places where there were train accidents.
Yeah.
And we'll see apparitions of guys out there with a lantern trying to stop the next train from having an accident, trying to get them to slow down, or if there's something in the rails ahead. So this reoccurring friendly, helpful apparition is like bread and butter. You know what I mean? It is like Ghost 101.
Yeah, like here we get the switchman, the Phantom Switchman down here in Valmeyer, just south of where we live, where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. There's a switch where a guy would sit in this little shack, and then when the train would come, he would go out there and throw the switch at certain times of the day so that trains could go on different tracks. And now the switch is automated.
Electronic,
yeah. So the spirit of this phantom goes out there with a lantern and waves, telling the train dangerous because he hasn't thrown the switch.
Right.
When the spirit doesn't know that no one throws the switch anymore. It's all automated. So, but it's cool that still happens to this day. That engineers will say that they saw the Phantom Switchman. He'll either be standing there on the side of the tracks when they go by where the shack used to be, or they'll see the lantern waving
back and forth,
telling them that the switch hasn't been thrown, but there's no switch to throw anymore.
Yeah,
it's all automated. So
you went out and you investigated that. I haven't done a lot of I've done a few road investigations like that, but mine are more household type of and big buildings like that. Have you gone and done a lot of these road investigations and that kind of? This
Vallecito stage stop is a crazy haunted place, and the reason why I went there was because
you used to live in that area too, so that helps.
I got people reached out to me because I was in the military at the time, and so that gives you an air of trustworthiness.
Right.
And they two. I don't know what they call them, Cal Edison, like we have the power people, they do.
Yeah.
Well, they were working on a buried underground cable that went right through the edge of the stage stop, and while they were doing their splicing, in the trench, a cowboy came up to the hole dressed in full, 1800s regalia, started yelling at him, and he actually shot one of the people. So one of the dudes went to the hospital because he had a wound in his back. They never found a bullet. But
wow.
So then they did a police report, they did all this stuff, and then finally it rattled down to paranormal, and they called me and were like, hey, we want you to check out this. It's crazy, but
it's great when you get phone calls.
Here's the report. Hey. And I read through the report, and I was like, a cowboy shot somebody, and you want me to go check it out.
Right.
So I drove out there during the daytime, and it's in the middle of nowhere in the desert.
Right.
Like nowhere. Like you can see, hills and sand in every direction. There's nothing at all there other than this trench they were digging, and they did their work and then left. So but that's why I went out there the first time, and then I heard all these other stories.
So then that makes me think, did the apparition think they were claim jumpers?
Right.
Or did the apparition think they were up to no good or whatever?
Well,
so that's the kind of the thought process I've got.
Sometimes, in my research, sometimes the highwaymen would rob the stagecoach and then hide the loot
Yeah, gotcha.
At the scene, and then come back later once everything is calmed down and dig it back up.
Right.
You know, there was a thing with the highwaymen where they would pretend to be the first one that discovered the scene.
Gotcha.
So they would rob the stagecoach and then go into town and tell the sheriff, "Hey, I was watering my horse and I came up on this scene. Everyone's dead."
Right.
And miraculously, they were all robbed of all their stuff.
Right.
So then they would take the sheriff out to the scene, so that way they could be the one that said, "Hey, look over here, look over here," you know, and then basically be the one that fudged the report for the guy. So then he would go back and say, "Oh, highwayman robbed this guy, and this helpful dude, you know, helped me assess the crime scene." And then once the sheriff goes away, they dig up all the loot they've taken and then ride into the next town and sell all their stuff.
So there's a lot of our followers here that on TikTok that say we need to go here, we need to go here, we need to go here. But we do actually have a place. Did we talk about this last week? I don't know if we did.
No.
We do actually have an open invitation to come do an investigation in part of a school.
Right.
All I have to do is text the guy and say, "Hey, we want to do it this night. We're going to come out and do an investigation." So we will be doing at some point here in the next month, hopefully. It's a matter of just timing, night-wise, to go out and do this investigation. And we're going to go out and do an investigation live, probably from like 10 p.m. to like 10 p.m. to like 3 a.m. or something like that. You know, we'll spend 2-3 hours out, maybe more. Just depends on how things go.
Yeah, how active it gets.
On an investigation. See, they're, Piranha's telling us come to Texas.
Yeah.
And then Pickle will say come to Salem.
I love Texas. So, we actually just went to Salem in the summer.
Yeah.
Me and Angie did.
But so we'll be doing our own investigation live here one night coming up on either a Friday or a Saturday. Saturday night. Just depends on
once we
him and Angie can get.
Well, once we get a date set, then we'll make a post to let everyone know. We'll do the whatever you call it, the premiere on YouTube.
We'll do a premiere on YouTube, and then of course we'll
go live.
I'll do a countdown timer on TikTok, and we'll go do that. So we've got that coming up, and we got some irons in the fire.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. It's starting to warm up too.
Yep. So that means we'll be out on the streets asking people. Once it gets warmed up, we'll get out on the streets, and we'll ask people for their ghost stories.
Yeah.
And we'll put that out there too. And we need to spend more time out. We'll spend a whole day out this time or something.
Yeah.
After a podcast or whatever. But a lot of people like to tell us their story, but they don't want to be on video telling the story.
Right.
So I think what we'll do is we'll let them tell us the story, and then immediately we'll sit down and record if they don't want to be on.
Yeah.
Either you telling their story or me telling their story, we'll immediately record and talk about it.
Right.
And then we'll have that for you guys. It'll be personal stories, not actually given by the person. So, yeah. And Rose says we need to come to Marietta, Ohio. So
that's
get
not
a lot.
Too far.
Yep. We'll get a lot going on. So, is there anything else? It's kind of a shorter podcast today.
Yeah.
Like this is a quick subject.
We didn't really dive deep into any of the Highway 50 things. We kind of touched the surface of it.
Yeah, it's I hate to say it, but it's your basic haunting stuff. It really is. How deep can we really go?
Yeah.
Besides specifics, we covered the one specific, and
well, I started this thing recently where I'm doing a case report on all of the paranormal claims that we get. So if we do a deeper dive, then I'll do a case report.
Right.
And our thing is to find the truth of these investigations, right? So after doing the research, actually sitting down and reading the research without all of the emotion, right? And taking all the emotion out of it and just looking at facts. Here's my theory of what happened with the Skubish family in this accident, okay? Everything about the accident, we all know, and that's well documented, right? The car went off the road, the mom was killed in the accident. And then the sheriff in his police report goes a little deeper into what happened. If you read his report, it kind of clears up a little bit of the paranormal.
Oh,
right?
really?
Because he says in his report that the kid had to have put the shoe on the side of the road because it wouldn't have come out of the car during the accident because the car was intact when it left the road.
Right.
So the kid was found naked in the passenger seat of the car when the police got there, right?
Right.
So if you follow the logic of it, then it was the kid that they saw on the side of the road laying there naked holding his head. And because they drove by so fast, they just saw naked body, side of the road, and their mind interpreted it as a woman.
Right.
Right, but it was actually, most likely, in my opinion, it was the little boy who was slightly injured still and maybe had a concussion. He was laying on the side of the road holding his head, and then once it got too cold for him,
he
slid back down the hill into the car, and then that's why they couldn't find him when the police got there.
That makes sense.
That's what we're here for. We
love to debunk.
We want to find the truth. We want to get to the bottom of the investigation, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, but then sometimes there's a logical answer to everything.
Right.
So I hate to rain on people's parades, but I would say that this one is debunked, in my opinion, because if you, and paranormal groups love to disregard, evidence that doesn't fit their narrative.
Right.
And their narrative was there was a ghost on the side of the road.
Right.
But we look for the evidence because we want the truth. I don't care about, sensational headlines, right? I want to know what really happened. And in my opinion, what really happened was the boy crawled up on the road, was laying there. They drove by fast, saw a naked body on the side of the road, thought it was a woman, and then it was actually the little boy.
Makes sense. That makes makes complete and total sense, and our motto is, stay curious and find the truth. And I'd rather, what we want to do is we don't automatically want to jump to paranormal.
Right.
We go through and we go, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Is it this? No. Yeah, we're going to exhaust everything. And then we go, well, you know what that leaves? That leaves paranormal.
Right.
Is how we do it. We try to debunk everything we can, and then if paranormal's left over, then that's what we're going to go with.
Right.
So.
And like in this case, people will tell you what the police officer said.
Right.
And they look up the police report.
Right.
Right? Because somewhere on the website, someone has scanned it in and see what the actual police said. Right. Or, the police work for you. Call them. Call them and find out what they said. Right? Say, hey, is there an emergency going on? Is there anybody, I don't want to interrupt the day-to-day operation of your police department, but I'd like to talk to somebody about blah, blah, blah. And usually, if it's something that's sensational, they have a person, like, talk to, Dave, he knows all about that. And then he'll call you back when it's safe.
Yeah, or email you or something. They usually have a person that is set aside for media relations.
And he'll be more than happy to tell you their side of what happened. And that's how, once I actually read the police report, I was like, he doesn't say it either, but in my opinion, I think it was the little boy that they saw on the side of the road. So, not that this place isn't haunted, because there's plenty of deaths on this curve and on this whole stretch of road, but in this specific case, I would have to say that the facts point towards it was the little boy laying on the side of the road, not the phantom of the mother. Because in my experience, if it is a phantasm of the mother, trying to... She would have been upright.
Yes.
In a full, spectral form, like pointing towards the side of the road.
Which we've seen several accounts of in different areas. That's what I was saying. The helpful ghosts are usually there and, pointing your direction
in full white regalia,
or even her clothing that residual self-image.
You would have seen her pointing towards the side of the road, like help this way. She wouldn't have been laying naked on the side of the road like an injured child would.
Right. So, like I said, unfortunately, we're going to cut it short today. I think we got about a good 25-30 minutes out today.
That's good.
And camera runs about 30 minutes and it kicks, so we know we've been 30 minutes roughly.
Yeah, well, I've discovered from reading Sony's website about this camera. The problem that I have is I have probably 100 times more memory than it was ever designed to hold.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. Got a big card in there.
Yeah, so it has a 500 gig card in it, and it was only ever designed for a 100 gig card. So that's why sometimes it goes to format something. It's like, wow, where do I put it?
Right.
So it kind of runs into an issue. So that's my fault.
Right.
So what I need to do is get a really fast 100 gig card.
There you go.
And stop trying to shoot for the moon and all my stuff.
You have a habit of going a little over the top on stuff.
That's my curse.
Like last week's camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it still over here? Or did you put it back?
It's over there.
But
put it back in its case.
But yeah, so all the obviously we've got our followers on TikTok here that know my account and know Bob's account now.
Yeah.
But all the social medias, RS Curtis.
Yeah, it's either RS Curtis
or the Veritas Project.
The Veritas Project.
Investigator Todd on all my social medias, the Insta, the Facebook, all that stuff.
Right.
We're on everything.
Yeah.
Just come find us. I hate to say it, but some of my stuff is not up to date. I will admit that.
Yeah.
But come find us. Make sure you check out the podcast on YouTube. If you're having trouble finding it on YouTube, for all our TikTok watchers, type in Project Investigation Collaboration, and it will pop right up.
Yeah.
And then because we get buried under that other, the other people.
People that wanted me to give them my website.
So, but yeah, so check us out, YouTube, Spotify, and
Instagram.
Yep.
Everything you can think of.
And are you thirsty, Bob? Do you need another drink?
And if you wanted to go on to Teespring and get some merch, that's where it is. But I didn't say that.
And there's we don't have any T-shirts or any mugs or anything out there
or
anywhere.
Bags, water bottles, baby onesies. We got masks. Remember when masks were a thing? We have masks in our store. We have everything. Everything you can think of is in there. And it's in two different. I made two different collections too. Angie made two different collections. There's the dark side and the light side.
Right.
So there's white clothes,
background and black background.
And then there's black clothes, and then you can get heather grays and blues and everything you want to. But I split it into two collections.
It's all drop shipped,
so
right?
That they would, so that it looks cool.
So, so we're putting it out there without putting it out there. Gotcha.
But I can't officially say that we have a store yet, but if you went to Teespring, you could find it.
Right. So, all right. Well, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. We appreciate you coming in and watching the podcast on Haunted Highway 50. And I know we went down some rabbit holes like we always do.
Right.
And like I said, check us out on everything else. And remember,
stay curious
and find the truth. And we will catch you next week. Thanks for coming in and watching the podcast. Bye, everybody.